Alright guys, we are back in my garage for another video, and today we are going to be doing another track day at Putnam Park Road Course. This is my redemption weekend. I am chasing a 119. If you guys remember from my previous videos, I ran a 1:20 on the stock turbo, upgraded the turbo, had some issues that weekend, but still was running a 120. And that's kind of notoriously a big hump at this track to get into the teens, you know, get a 19 or 18. That would be my goal, but everybody says it's like the biggest hurdle to jump through once you get to that point. So that's what we're chasing this weekend. We're going to be figuring out the car, testing out all the new parts we have, and hopefully that'll allow me to reach my goals. So let's go ahead and get the weekend started. Hopefully you guys enjoy. Now, as always, for everybody that's new to the channel, I create these videos to help keep you updated on the latest developments in our community, as well as discuss technical topics so that we have a better understanding of how our engines work. So if you're interested in more videos like that, be sure to subscribe because there will be a lot more coming out in the future. Maybe this is the problem. This is my right rear tire, basically the one that I use the least, and it's all the way up to 39 psi. Some of my other tires were over 40, so same issue I had at NCM. Need to air them down for better traction, and we should be good to go.
to go check out your car. You're blowing a ton of smoke going down every straight and every time you lift. So make sure you didn't have something come loose or leaking something. I can smell it right here too.
It might be my PCV.
Yeah.
It's just a catch can venting the atmosphere.
Go check and see if it's over full or something.
Okay.
Just in case.
Thank you. Not rough because the car is messed up, thankfully. Rough because I can't figure out how to go any faster. The car is trolling me. I ran a bunch of 120s back to back. I ran a 120.00. I just knew that was my 19 and I still didn't get it. So it's getting a little bit frustrating, but I think I have a couple things I want to try. One is the car is definitely pulling power. It's getting slower as the session goes on. It's a pretty hot day. It's 85 degrees outside, so not really a great day for tracking. And I know at NCM, even when temps were in the 70s, my IATs were getting kind of high. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. Even it got to the point where the car like cut all boost. I was like not able to accelerate by the end of the session to kind of put it into protection mode. So I'm gonna try sport cooling mode, and I know I said I would never use it and I don't really recommend it, and generally I don't, but I flashed sport cooling mode, drove my car on the street, and it was like 180 degrees or something like that. So clearly it's working, but I think for normal driving that's absolutely unnecessary. But I'm hoping on the track that can at least help a little bit. This is already with sport cooling mode for the intercooler turned on, but we're gonna see if sport cooling for the engine can help manage heat a little bit better and avoid losing so much power as the session goes on. I'm also thinking about trying Sport Plus again, just because it stiffens up the suspension. Body roll isn't a huge issue, but I think it can help. The other option, of course, would be to upgrade the suspension, get, stiffer suspension. But I like being able to have comfort mode and sport mode and things for daily driving. So that's why I just kind of went with lowering springs. But I'm wondering if that can help me with stability through the turns, to have a little more confidence in the car and allow me to squeeze out that little extra bit of performance. Otherwise, it might be time to just go to coilovers and see what we can do there. I might be hitting the limit of springs. It would be awesome if I had an M3, because then you can just stiffen up the suspension and keep the throttle at low sensitivity. But unfortunately, when I put it in Sport Plus, it makes the throttle very touchy and it makes it very hard to manage power as you're going through turns. So that's why I don't use Sport Plus mode. That's why I just use traction mode. But we'll see if that helps at all. So Sport cooling mode, turning on Sport Plus, seeing if one, that helps me get faster, and two, if that helps me make consistent power throughout the session. So fingers crossed. Wish me luck. Well, guys, didn't get it. I kind of felt like it wasn't going to happen, but the car was still getting super hot, pulling power. It was way down on power. I was barely hitting 130 miles an hour at the end of the front straight, so I know it was down on power. So I still think it's something related to the IATs. I did a check on Project Farm, which I probably should have checked before I decided to try the VP Racing coolant, and they did a test on a bunch of different coolants, and believe it or not, the VP Racing performed the worst and pretty much everything except the heat transfer capability. So otherwise it should work really well. I think maybe one of two things could have happened. One is it's low on coolant, which I'm not sure how it would be, but I couldn't check it today because the car was always hot. So I'll check that first thing in the morning just to make sure that the cooling system is topped off and it's not low. And then the other thing would be if there was like an air bubble or something in the system, which is again highly unlikely because I vacuum filled it. I drove it around for a while before I got here, so I even topped it off a little bit after driving the car around, but maybe there's an air bubble in the system and I just need to re-bleed it again. So unfortunately, I don't have the tools to do that here. I'll have to do that when I get home, but you know, we'll see. The ideal situation is tomorrow, either I figure out something simple like that, you know, the coolant's just low or whatever and I need to top it off. I did bring extra with me just in case, so I'll be able to add that to the system if needed. But I think the other thing, of course, would be just hoping for cooler temps, because today it almost got up to 90 degrees. It cooled down a little bit later in the afternoon, but it got really hot today, and that of course could just be another factor too. I've never tracked a car while it was this hot outside, so we'll see tomorrow. But I think that's the biggest gap, because obviously the car is way down on power and I'm still running 120s, so in theory, with full power and everything working in my favor and Kevin driving like he should, I should be able to run better than a 20, but we'll find out tomorrow. So thanks for sticking with me. Let's see what Sunday holds.
riding?
Yeah, too much curb coming out of here. It's just super slick.
Would you drop a wheel off in 10 coming out?
It didn't come off, but I think it's just wet on the curbing, and so when I got back on, it just
took it.
Yeah.
Feel all right when you went back out?
Yeah, but I'm just gonna bring it in.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
We're gonna leave. Yeah, he's going back in. All right. All right. Wife wasn't very enthused about you going through the grass.
It's like she doesn't know what I came here for. Like, obviously.
Hey, she was up there.
Yeah, a little bit.
She changed. She was smiling happy when you went by the first time. The second time.
Well, I told her I didn't know they installed a roller coaster after turn 10, so that's new. Now I'm ready.
Did you have to change your shorts when you were back?
Oh no, I'm gonna keep those for old time's sake.
Oh, great.
All right, guys, we are back in my garage for another video. Or sorry, I guess we already did that, but we're back in the garage. It's actually a couple days after my track weekend. When I got back, I was just ready to wrap it all up. So we skipped forward a couple days, all right? First of all, I want to give a huge shout out to the Kentucky PCA. They're the guys that I've been running with in pretty much all of my track day videos so far. And I'm really excited to run again with them later this year. So if you guys are interested in coming out, I will have a link to their information in the video description, and you can see all of the track days that they have planned. They have multiple per year, and we have one more event at Putnam Park in September. So if you're in the Midwest area, want to learn your car, become a better driver, and kind of feel things out in a really laid back kind of scenario, definitely sign up for that. I will be instructing at that event as well, so there's a chance I could be instructing you in your car, or at least we could all be driving on the track together and having a good time. So definitely check that out. Their information, again, will be in the video description. So let's do a quick recap of the weekend, and I think the first and biggest thing that you guys saw me dealing with were temperature issues. I was definitely having problems with IATs. It was extremely frustrating and kind of one of those things where when you're in the middle of it, there's not a whole lot you can do. You know, if it's hot outside and you've got your setup put together, you're kind of at the mercy of what the limits are. You know, it is what it is. And I think I mentioned in the video that before this track day, I knew it was going to be hot. So I switched from the coolant that I had been running in the winter to avoid freezing and things like that to the VP Racing coolant. So this is their best coolant, top of the line coolant. It's supposed to have the best cooling properties. All my research actually indicates that it is very good, but I started feeling like it wasn't at the track because of the problems I was having. I checked my coolant levels. You know, like I said, I vacuum filled it before I went to the track. I drove it around for a while before I went to the track. So it didn't really make any sense. But sure enough, when I got home, I got it off the trailer and just double checked the coolant levels. And sure enough, it was low. So there was absolutely a big air pocket, air bubble somewhere in the system. I don't know how it got in there or how it was able to stay in there for so long despite my driving and everything. But this goes to reiterate that before your track day, just make sure your car is 100%. I didn't run any logs. I didn't floor the car. I was just kind of driving it around normally, going to work and stuff, making sure everything was fine. But I didn't really push it to make sure that it could handle the maximum amount of load, where I would have seen, IAT issues or something to indicate either the system needed to be rebled or that there was a problem that needed to be addressed. If you don't do that, there's a much bigger likelihood that you'll run into issues like I did that can take away from the weekend. Thankfully, I was still able to drive it and have a lot of fun, get a lot of seat time, but I wasn't able to get the maximum potential or consistency that I wanted in the car. I was doing a good job this time. I made sure I had the car all ready to go like a week ahead of time. I wasn't changing things last minute, but I should have did a little more testing before I went to the track day. Now, that being said, I also want to add that I was fighting temps, but temps were not my main issue. When I looked at the data, I actually realized a lot of the issues with my top speed came because I was actually slower getting onto the front straight. And this kind of reinforces the fact that you need good data to understand what parts of your driving need to be improved. I took some advice from a friend that changed how he handled the last two turns, turn 9 and 10, which are notoriously complex. It looks very simple, but there's like 3 or 4 different ways you can handle those turns. And he said doing it a certain way took off a second from his lap times. And I thought, hey, I'm trying to take a second off my lap time, so I'll try it. And I was working on that all weekend. I never actually looked at the data to see if it was making a difference. And sure enough, my exit speed coming out of turn 10 was around like 5 or 10 miles an hour slower than it was last year. So of course, on the tail end, I was a couple miles an hour down from my top speed. So I think that's something that I know is a good takeaway. Next time when I go to the track, I will absolutely not be doing that anymore. I'll stick to my original strategy because the combination of me and the car as a driver, it works best for me. So that's what I'm going to stick with. It's great that his, style works great for him. Everybody's different. Every car is different. It's just going to depend on your setup. And just make sure if you have good data that you're paying attention to it and making decisions based off the data, not just your gut feel. That's really what's going to guide you in the right direction. Third thing, of course, is I got that black flag for oil. And I think I mentioned in the video, it was for my catch can being loose. My thoughts around that is that with the catch can being loose, some oil was dripping out from the hose, which was creating the smoke that they saw that made me get called in. Once I tightened the hose, no more issues with smoke, never had a black flag or any other issues the rest of the weekend. So just keep that in check. I've been running dump tubes on both of my cars for a long time, but I just switched to a catch can setup for my track days. And that's something that I'm going to be paying attention to in the future. So of course, regardless of track or not, you want your catch can hoses to be tight, but I'm assuming with the vibrations and stuff, it was vibrating loose and backed off. And so once I tightened it down with a wrench, it was good for the rest of the weekend. So yeah, just keep that in mind as well. And then the last thing is the fuel pump, which I didn't get to touch on in the video, but it was much better than the dual pump setup. There's nothing wrong with the dual pump setup, but when you're doing a track day, it's much more simple and easy to run an upgraded pump if you're shooting for higher horsepower levels. And when I'm running this lower power pump gas setup, I just want something that works. So in this case, it was a godsend, but it only gave me about a quarter tank extra of fuel. So I still did run into fuel cut once gas levels got a little lower. I think I was around 70 miles to empty when the fuel cut happened and I got low fuel pressure. So it didn't quite let me get to the gas light. It was better than before. Like I said, it gave me like an extra quarter tank, but I still think there's an opportunity there to improve. So I've been talking to RK Tunes. We have a couple ideas of things that we can look at with the system. One, to make sure I hooked it up right so that it's getting, the transfer fuel from the left side of the tank properly. And then if that's all good, there might be some other things we can tweak to make it work even better. So stay tuned for that. We'll be looking at that in the future. Nice thing is I still had the reflex installed. I still have that low pressure fuel system monitoring set up, and the car was able to cut boost and everything and give me the low pressure fuel warning. So
VeriFlex still has a great place and is very useful. Even though I've switched to this DI only setup, it's giving me all the safeties that I like to make this stuff easy to diagnose. But yeah, otherwise, I think that pretty much sums up my experience. So great time, dirty car, but made it back home safe and sound all in one piece. So I can't really complain. Got a lot of practice and seat time this weekend, and I'm really looking forward to the next event. So again, shout out to the Kentucky PCA. If you guys are interested in looking at their calendar or just looking at track days in general, check out the link in the video description. And I think that's it for this video. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below.